Hello and welcome to RPGs Uncovered. We are here for another episode of our WIP Workshop creator interview series. Uh, for those of you who are just joining or haven't stopped by in a while, this is a series I run about every Wednesday to help show off new games that are currently crowdfunding, currently promoting, getting ready to release. So this is your chance to find your next favorite game out there and go and support and help new creators and other enthusiasts and players like yourself, game masters of all variety, find new games and broaden your TTRPG horizons. So we are here to talk with Michael Lowe of Luck of Legends, on to talk about Luna Uni and a number of his experiences in the classroom. Luna Uni and the associated rule set behind that is a game designed to help teach students of all ages, young kids, adults alike, very valuable socio-emotional, interpersonal skills, stuff like that.
Socio-emotional learning is
Socio-emotional.
such a mouthful.
It
Like
is.
teachers, we're always like SEL. It's one of the few acronyms we like. We're
I will
like,
have to
yeah,
remember that. Yeah.
SEL, because I don't want all those syllables. I'm good. Yeah.
SEL right there.
There you go.
Awesome. As well as, normal academic school subjects, and we'll talk about more of that later. So let me pass this over to you, Michael, to talk about yourself real quick. I see on here that you are a certified teacher, a master teacher. I will have to ask what a master teacher entails. First of all, a master teacher in English language arts. You have 20 or so years of experience in the classroom. You do this. You do a podcast. Sounds like you have a lot going on. And you're obviously very enthusiastic about this game and teaching, from what we've been talking about before we started this. So thank you so much for joining us.
Oh, yeah.
Welcome. Say
Thank you for
hello.
having me. I'm super excited to be here. Yeah, so master teacher, it's a reference to people who have guided folks through their master's degree attainment process. So when you've taught for a certain amount of time, sometimes you get lucky and a college will reach out and be like, hey, we got these teachers who are aspiring to get their master's degree. And part of that's a practicum where they need
Mm.
to work with someone in the classroom. So I've been fortunate to have like 7 different folks work with me. And it's really amazing. If there are many different things I would do had I a wand to, cure all of
Hmm.
education's ills in the States. But one of the many would be, it'd be great to have 2 people in every room. Teaching with a partner is just
Hmm.
phenomenal. It's
Hmm.
it's such a wonderfully invigorating, like you get to share your practice, you get to share your wins with kids, you get to share the load and figure out how to divide
Hmm.
responsibilities, and you also learn more because we all learn better in a community. And you can have community with your fellow teachers in other rooms, but boy, having somebody who understands the culture and community in your room is really amazing.
Hmm. Well,
So I feel
I've
like that's one of those, like, I'm not patting my own back. That's one of my, like, I'm very grateful that kind of things.
Right. No, I can definitely see that. I've been fortunate to have some classes like that back in high school. The gifted and
Mm.
talented program, which was its own thing we can talk about off camera.
Speaking of other
But
things I would change about the, okay, never mind,
right,
please.
right. But yeah, 2 teachers in one classroom is fantastic. Like multiple different perspectives. In it's always good to have multiple different perspectives in whatever you're looking at. So that's fantastic. But I'm sure we could spend the next several hours talking about teaching and being students and the process of learning. I almost got into teaching myself. We can talk about that later.
I'm sorry you missed the boat. Don't worry, it's still there.
All
Everyone
right.
can still get into teaching. Teaching's a lifetime thing. Everybody's
Mm-hmm.
got it in them. Come through.
Well, I teach out of a classroom. In fact,
Right
most
on.
of this channel I do is teaching new RPGs. So I've kind of worked it in that way. But I will use that as a segue to redirect us back to Luna Uni. So
Yeah.
how about you tell us a little bit? Just give us the elevator pitch about what that is.
Okay. The quick elevator pitch is, it is a story game that allows kids to master writing in the classroom, and it centers student agency and voice, and it recreates writing as a joyous, culture building activity where kids really do absolutely master and write entire novellas, and fall in love with writing, which is what, as a teacher, your biggest goal is. I want my kids to fall in love with learning. And sadly, and this is the thing I always say about school is already a game. Whenever folks talk about gamification, I kind of laugh because it's a ridiculous concept. School already is a game. When people say gamification, they really mean, can we redesign the game of school? Because it's a badly designed game. It's not designed for players. It has arbitrary points and rules that shift from room to room and often feel like black boxes where the kids are like, I don't know why I'm receiving this feedback. And a lot of the rewards are things that the players don't value. So of course, a lot of them are like, I don't want to play this game. It's stupid. And you really can't blame them for it. So Luna Uni is born out of the last 3 years of me using story games to teach. I have developed Stories RPG in collaboration with Daniel Hines of Stories Podcast. That's actually the biggest podcast for kids, apart from WoW in the World, in the world. So we now run the Stories RPG pod, and we've been releasing play-at-home coloring book, choose your own adventure games that are literacy builders, like Starsworn. That was our first Kickstarter. And also now Giga City Guardians. I'm now the host, so that's a whole other thing. And I'm developing games, and they all go parallel plot to the podcast. But I haven't yet developed an approach that I could hand off to other teachers. And this is the real key. Games have been used, story games have gotten a lot of attention for therapeutic use, really wonderful gains for all sorts of people, all sorts of different groups. But they haven't really been implemented in the classroom. And there's a couple reasons. One is very few games have been developed for use in the classroom because there's a lot of things teachers need. We have limits on our time. We have a need to be clear about what standards we're hitting. We need assessment tools. We need pacing guides. We need lesson plans. And those are things that I am currently in the midst of playtesting and developing with my 2 playtest teachers, Tyler and Tom, who are amazing. I actually only found this out day before yesterday. We had one of our meetings, and I had assumed that they were story gamers before we worked together because they had mentioned running a D&D club. Turns out they had started the D&D club a week before we met on a whim using the online curriculum. And their first role-playing game ever, they ran Luna Uni for a class of kids, never having played a role-playing game before in their lives.
That's impressive.
And are absolutely on fire and love it. And the kids love it. And they're all, they've been so amazing. Like, they keep sending me all these things. Like, a parent wrote in to say, this Luna Uni thing that you're doing with the kid, like, it's completely changed my kid. He loves writing. He's telling me to read his stuff all the time. He won't stop writing at night. So they're sending me all this wonderful feedback about everything that's going on. And it's just been super exciting to put this together for everyone to really be able to use to flip the script on games in the classroom, on what the game of school is about. So Luna Uni is not a game about being judged by adults. Luna Uni is a game where you get to collaborate with everyone else in the room to create a world that belongs to you, and then inhabit characters within that world and explore it. And that's what makes it really compelling. Students are at the center of all of the work that they do, and the academic mastery is tied to something practical that they care about, which is peer attention. I always say, there's always that athlete who doesn't do any work, and then there's a game they don't qualify for because, there's a couple classes they're not passing, and 3 months of work will get done in a week. They'll do that because the experience they have playing the sport has been massively compelling. They have a team that they trust, who backs them, who celebrates them. They have a feeling of pride and ownership, both of their own skills and of their belonging to that team. Anybody who's played a good role-playing game knows that feeling.
Oh yeah.
It's the team, it's that amazing ability that games have to create emotionally engaging moments where people genuinely connect and build collective culture.
Yes.
And I always say, we talk a lot in education about classroom culture, right? Classroom culture, it's all built on trust. you only trust people who you've been vulnerable with, who have looked out for you, who have
and who
proven
can
that you can
relate.
afford to trust them. Yeah. In story games, you have those emotionally vulnerable moments in the fiction, and it feels real. You're on the edge of your seat. And then when your teammates look out for you, it builds that relationship in a very real way that nothing else I've seen in my experience as an educator has built, student to student.
And I've looked into games as a way to teach and a way to learn for years and years and years, going back to my own time in school. I know I played a lot of those old like Math Blaster games and reading
Totally.
games and typing games and whatnot. But of course, that's only a solo sort of experience. But what I've always found compelling with using role-playing games and collaborative storytelling games as a way to learn and teach and connect is that you get multiple levels of affirmation, gratification. That's a big concept I hear from teachers, that immediate gratification and versus long-term gratification, and you get both of that in a middle ground through gaming that you don't otherwise get sitting in a classroom looking at a chalkboard saying, okay, I understand that equation, I've wrote it down, that doesn't mean anything to me.
Yeah. Well, so, I just came back from South by Southwest Education, and I was fortunate enough to get to present there. I was there with Steph Campbell of TTRPG Kids, Marianne Cullinan, who is Calliope's Cauldron, a PhD researcher who's working on the use of games in the classroom, and Chris Hopper, who does a lot of accessibility work for a lot of big names in the industry. And we jokingly said he was our Iron Man. He knows South by Southwest Education, and he kind of reached out and we assembled the team. But we presented at 2 panels there. And what you're talking about is something that Marianne explains really, really well in terms of the theory. Basically, you access some of the higher levels of Bloom's taxonomy and also Maslow's hierarchy, although I'm not the biggest fan of Maslow's hierarchy, when you're in a game. So you get self-esteem, feelings of love and connection, those higher level things. You're also moving through the top levels of processing as a player. You get to move between doing analysis and very high levels of analysis, both interpersonal, how do I help this person? How do I connect with this person? How do we discuss this together? And also tactical and strategic, right? What do we do in this situation? What's a solution we could come up with? So the real barrier that, for me, that was interesting as a designer when I began working on games that you could put into the classroom, not just use in small groups, not use in after school programs, but use as a main approach inside of a classroom, was, okay, how do we separate and sculpt, sort of mold the process that you go through in a game to fit the needs of a classroom that could be up to 30 kids, right? And so
that's a big gaming table.
It is a big gaming table, but there are ways to do it. I realized I don't know if I can share screen. I have all these slides about this stuff, which may not be necessary, and I certainly don't need to put them up if they're not of interest. But if you'd like to get a little into the nitty gritty of like how this works, I'm happy to nerd out.
Right. Yeah, I don't think the way we have this this layout set up that slides will work, but you can send them to me and I can edit them into the video as we talk about anything that may come up.
Fancy.
Yeah.
Okay, hold on. Let me
So feel free to chat, and afterwards, I can push it all together and make it work.
Wow, that's very fancy. Well, here's a link to the slideshow if you'd like. Play is structured in 2 different kinds of sessions. We have live sessions and lore sessions. So in lore sessions, the kids get to write, and every game begins with a few seeds. I call them lore seeds. They're there to inspire. They're there to get the kids aligned on their concept of what kind of a setting and world they'll be inhabiting, but they're also there to get them thinking about what they'd like to build. And they're allowed to write whatever they like. We always have a list of prompts, and whatever they write becomes true. And in lore sessions, it's read aloud, everybody claps like crazy, and then we do editing and discussion of how the lore intersects. So, okay, how can we make these different things work together? Wait a minute. Okay, if you made a world like that, can I be from the sister world? Because I feel like those two worlds, I feel like I got an idea for. And this is a great place for kids to get inspired by each other's stories. But the key here is peer recognition and also peer celebration. This is a key factor missing from most classrooms, which is just a shame. If you never get other kids genuinely, not like, nice presentation, like for the lame presentation that you didn't really want to do, but actually being like, oh my God, that was really cool. And like gasping when you reveal the strange thing, or, oh man, mystery, or I hate that character. That's awesome. You made a dope villain. If you never get that kind of reaction for academic skills, of course, kids don't have any kind of compulsion outside of, and this is bad game design, I want to win the game. I don't particularly feel compelled by the game. I'm not excited about the skills I'm mastering, but I'll get the points because I have to.
Yep.
And so that's the purpose of the lore, both to come together, but also to celebrate and encourage and inspire the writing for one another. And kids get really into this. The cool part is this all lives in a digital, it's in a slides deck where they can add as many slides as they like and as many illustrations as they like. And as a result, these slide decks easily get up into hundreds of pages very quickly because the kids are writing extra. My two, Tyler and Tom, have been like, my kids wrote over break. I don't understand. I'm like, yeah, don't worry. They'll keep doing it. And they have, they're all writing extra because they're not writing for arbitrary, stupid points. They're writing for each other. And because it's exciting and because it's theirs. So that's lore sessions. Live sessions, they're a little bit rarer, but those are the moments where they get to inhabit the characters they've created, and they're allowed to create more than one. They're authors. And they get to use those characters to navigate challenges and scenes. And the scene setup, the characters themselves, the character sheets themselves are designed as a literary analytical tool. They teach the principles of good storytelling. So the point of the game from the get-go is we're here to tell a good story. So when you create your character, you get to select lines that define who your character is. And you can make up your own, but there's always a list if you need some prompting. There's always their drive. Their drive is what motivates them. It's not a goal. It's not a concrete thing that's external. It's the internal motivation. I want to prove myself to my family. I want to live up to my dad's expectations. I want to find people who accept me for who I am. I want to learn everything I can. All of these might be a drive, right? Then there's downfall. Downfall is what you struggle with. And we always say, this is, of course, crucial, because how many of you have read a story about a character who was perfect and did everything perfectly and was always powerful and always won? And they all kind of went like, yeah, those are boring. Nobody wants those stories. So downfalls are great. Always choose a downfall that you're going to have fun with. Create a character you're interested in hearing stories about. So I'm terribly, cripplingly shy. I struggle with focusing, and I'm super high energy and can't control my energy. And the purpose here is dual. One, you're fostering that understanding of story, but you're also encouraging kids to embrace, look, this is your identity. You don't need to criticize yourself. And kids often create characters who have very parallel downfalls. Then there are things like bonds. Who are you connected with, right? Quirks. What's the weird thing about you that sticks out? And then there are always skills or powers or traits, things that, you can use in tough situations to get out of them. And if it's a sci-fi piece, I always do gear, right? Because everybody wants to have at least one iconic piece of gear.
Yep. Got to have that jetpack or the ray gun.
Exactly. Well, and so this is the purpose of the lore sessions. In the lore sessions, when you cheer, you also get to rate how well you think you did. And this is really key. The kids have to do it for themselves. So you get to choose between 1 to 5 story points. 1 means I kind of, I didn't really try. It's a couple sentences. 2 means, yeah, okay, I wrote a little bit, but I could have done better. 3 means it's a story. It's basic, but it's a story. It's solid. 4 is I'm pushing it. I'm proud. 5 is, behold, my creation. I am mighty. This is the moment of, real pride. Kids almost always undersell themselves. And then that leads to this wonderful moment where everyone else in the room is yelling at them and going, no, that was a 5. Are you like, what's wrong, dude? Are you crazy? So it's a wonderful, and the kids who's, blushing, right? Who gave themselves 3, has a great moment of feeling wonderfully rewarded by their peers. Those story points allow them to buy new lines for their character. They also allow them to buy specials. Specials allow them once per game to raise the result on a roll to do something particular. It's their one big thing. And I can talk about dice mechanics in a second, but I could talk about scene structure and why we use that. I can also talk about how my teachers have been using the character sheets as analytical tools when they're reading. They're reading Amari and the Night Brothers, and they've been able to find quotes that they plug into the character sheet that then becomes a template for writing analytical essays about characterization. So there's a very deep level, meta-analytical level of academic skill being built. It's really exciting. Sorry, if you can't tell, if you ask me about this, I'm going to tell you.
Yeah, no, I can see. I love the enthusiasm. No, that's great. I'm happy to just sit back and have you teach me about the game. I can hear the teacher in you, and you probably hear this, but you're one of the having a teacher like yourself who presents like this is invigorating, is inspiring, because I've had teachers who just stand up there at the classroom, they have their book or they have the chalkboard, and they're just monotone, they're just flat, fact A, fact B, fact C, and that turns a half-hour class into what feels like all day. But we've been here for almost half an hour, and I'm just, yeah, keep going.
Have we? Oh wow! I'm sorry. I feel like I've taken up your time.
No.
Well, I mean, this is the other thing about this. The approach itself, for folks who are outside of gaming and are not familiar with story games, most of the ways in which games are presented and most of the games that are out there, one, they're not developed for the classroom. 2, they have steep learning curves, and they're almost, the gatekeeping is a loaded word. There's a way in which we've been creating things for each other for a long time. So we've kind of forgotten how the rest of the world learns stuff. So, Starsworn, my first Kickstarter, was an attempt to use, and it's ongoing because we're still releasing these games with Stories RPG, the podcast. It's an attempt to use familiar approaches. So coloring book, choose your own adventure, to scaffold players in, and it's a 0 prep game. You literally pick up the game and it says, hi, welcome to the game, do this, okay, turn the page. And it's that same play to learn experience you get in video games, but we very rarely see effectively implemented in role playing, which is a shame because story games are one of those intuitive, beautiful things that everyone, put 2 4-year-olds in a room. Watch how long it takes for one of them to be a dragon and the other one to be a Pokemon, and they're running around and there are Zorches. They're telling the story game. It's us. We're the ones who need to relearn that flexibility and that willingness to negotiate the space between. So when you're talking about those teachers who are standing in front of the room and droning, part of the problem there is they don't have a framework that works for them either. They're not inspired and excited. They're not able to be excited to be in the room because they don't have a framework for learning with students. And that's the part that's also exciting about this approach. It really, I don't know, my teachers, they've been so cute. Tom and Tyler, I'm really just completely grateful and super in love with them. They're amazing, but they've been blown away. They're like, I don't want to teach with anything else. We're full in. They're planning we're planning a full year impact study next year, in addition to the implementation study. There's all these fancy ed things you got to do if you want to get, certified and allow yourself to be licensed to districts for curriculum development and PD and all that stuff. But they're writing a day-by-day journal of their experiences, and they've just had huge wins. And one thing they said was, I was a little nervous at first, especially, and it still blows my mind that it was their first game ever, and they ran a 2-hour live session of Luna Uni based on a scene that I laid out for them with read alouds and hooks and potential moves. And they were like, yeah, it got really easy once I started asking the kids what they think should happen.
Mm-hmm.
So, we had a kid who, there's a part where they're on. So I don't know if you want to hear about the setting. I feel like I keep like I'm going on to divergent tracks here.
Well, let me actually put a pause on you there because I
Please,
definitely
please,
want to hear
please.
about that. I was going to say a lot of what you've been talking about reminds me of how I learned to GM and how I teach other people to GM, because
Hmm.
you're not just this disembodied arbitrator of what is going on. You're not removed from the situation. You're not dictating what is happening and waiting on responses from that. You're collaborating as yet another player, as another active participant in this. So I feel like there's a lot of parallels between teaching and collaborative storytelling and being
Well,
the person who runs the game.
so this is funny because teaching and storytelling definitely have a huge overlap. And the way that folks play a storytelling game, and it really depends on the one you're playing. Because this is the thing.
Yeah.
I deeply believe that design has a huge impact
Oh yeah.
on how you play and what you believe is sort of normal for play.
And
So
and how you play, what matters, and how you go about it, and how you
but
interact with the world and the GM and the other players.
so even by I the dragon game. If you play the dragon game, and that's wonderful, you should play it. If you want to play it, go do your thing. It's not suited for the classroom for a number of reasons. And one of the primary ones is most of the mechanics have to do with battle.
Mm-hmm.
That's what it's about. It's a game about fighting. Um, and it's a game in which how you fight and how you win is really crucial. One of the things that's built into Stories RPG's engine and that is really foundational for Luna Uni is it's a game where failing is encouraged,
Love it.
where you want to fail because it makes the story interesting, and where everyone at the table is invited to the table as an author. So, example, when we're using X cards, we call those author moments. So if you're in your avatar, right, and you're in the middle of a scene and it gets intense, and you're like, hold on, stop. Then everybody takes an author moment. All right, you just failed a roll or you had something troubling happen. Are you upset with that roll and want to stop it because as the avatar, it felt upsetting? How do you feel about it as an author? Would it be fun for the plot? How do you want it to
Mm-hmm.
go? And if you're like, no, I want this to go well, I want this to, then we don't even need to roll. If you want to succeed at this and you think that'd be great for the story, awesome. That's what we're doing. Let's move on because we're here to tell a good story.
I've had the
And
same discussion with people in their 40s and 50s who have been playing games for years.
well, there's a framework for this that really helps negotiate these conversations because I've seen a lot of folks get into weird, intense discussions about how games should work. And I like to use the framework, the eight kinds of fun. There's a great article on Gnome Stew about it. But basically, there are 8 different categories of fun in a game that they identified that you can look for. And as you're designing, it can be very helpful to keep in mind what kinds of fun do I like,
Mm-hmm.
right? And what proportions do I like? So examples, some people really like competition. And that's a primary type of fun. They want winning and losing. They want to know that they were victorious. They want a hard challenge that they can overcome and feel proud of. There's also narrative. There's fellowship, feeling connected to other people at the table. There's what they call sensation, right? Moving around your little minis, playing with all the different really cool things, looking at the art, right? Um, this is a game that's about fellowship. It's a game that's about narrative. And it's a game that's about fantasy, exploration, creating stories together. So those types of fun are very much centered in this game. And for the purpose of teaching the metacognitive levels of like how to work with plot, how to work with characterization, how to deepen your descriptions, why formatting matters. It's really fun to teach grammar with this because like kids don't want to learn grammar, it's boring. But if it's in the service of making your story clearer and making it easier to read aloud for other people, all of a sudden you're like, oh, I get why it's important. Sure,
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to do that. I need paragraphs because if I don't have paragraphs, it's intimidating to look at a text wall and the flow of my story isn't clear. So the pacing doesn't make sense. And Now I can do one of those one sentence paragraphs where I drop a really dramatic sentence and then everybody's like, oh, and understanding that practical reason for the skill. I have a motivation to do it. I want to do it for my peers to celebrate. I know why this matters. All of a sudden makes a skill that would otherwise be mind-numbingly boring to learn as a formula important and easy, and sort of part of the natural process of doing the things you want to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're getting that personal gratification and value from it, and you're also getting you're seeing other people better involve themselves with what you're doing. Which and everyone just wants to connect, really, in some way, shape, or form.
Well, that's why we love the game. I mean, that's why that's why story gamers we're so hard for it, right? We love our story games. We go hard for story games. We want to play, right? Everybody wants to play. And the reason we want to play is it's a wonderful way to build community and connection. And those communities and those connections become very profound. And having that happen in the classroom for kids, it's absolutely, I don't know, it's floored me. I have to say that when I started teaching with story games, I face palmed because I'd been playing games my whole life. I knew how much I played them after school with kids. And when I started approaching it as, wait a minute, I could design these for the classroom and I could make them all standards aligned and accessible. And I could give these kids, I just felt like, why did it take me so many years to get here? I knew all the value. I should have been here already. So this is a long time coming for me.
Beautiful. And having gone through that and identified that and worked to create this, I think that's going to help a lot of other people.
I hope so.
Long-term teachers, new teachers. I can see this being a really great way to reinvigorate the classroom.
I was really excited. I mean, there's a lot of need right now. The classroom has always been tough. The ed system in the States is not well built. Like I said, it's not a game that's designed for the players. And most teachers are really wonderful game designers, and they're wonderful storytellers. They're redesigning school every day in their rooms. They're basically doing what, I'll say this, they're doing what I think really good D&D players do, which is they're bending everything and homebrewing it and making it work in the way they need to make the game they actually want to play. I don't think D&D is popular because it's a really wonderful game. I think it's popular because people fall in love with the game they create using that game as a template. And that's the same thing with teachers. We're all re-engineering the game of school inside of our rooms. The thing that was really exciting about South by Southwest, which it was huge and overwhelming, and I met all these very important people, and it was really exciting, but people were really excited about this because the classroom's gotten harder. Social emotional skills and social emotional learning has become so much more centered because kids have been at home for 3 years, and some of these kids have never been in a classroom, but they're coming in much older with no framework for how to interact, how to play the game of school. And obviously it's a crappy game. So they're being taught this game and they're like, why would I play this game? This is a terrible game. And a lot of the kids who were, who are older and have been in classrooms before, they've had a huge break. And so there's a lot of need. There's a lot of kids struggling with a lot of issues. And there's a lot of teachers who are really facing a lot of burnout, especially in states where, folks are passing laws that make it nearly impossible to teach. So it's a really tough situation. And people were really excited by the approach. I had so many people coming up to me after the session. I had people, like, I was having a coffee with Chris Hopper on the street and somebody literally did a U-turn and was like, I saw your session. We need to talk. I need you to teach a bunch of my teachers this. We gotta, and so it's definitely timely. And I think there's a lot of openness to new ideas and new approaches. And once we have the research behind us, because right now it's all anecdotal, my teachers are in love with it and they have pages and pages of journal entries. They're recording all their classes. They're going to be doing interviews with a PhD researcher friend of mine who's going to be running first our implementation and then our impact study. But that'll allow this to become an approach that will be generally usable at scale, as opposed to just me talking about it, waving my finger, running a Kickstarter, and then hopefully a few people get it. So this is really the pilot for something that's much larger.
Mm-hmm.
I'm hoping that this can become, a really wonderful way to transform teaching and learning for a lot of folks.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I certainly hope so too. I'm loving what I've been hearing. But you did say Kickstarter, so
I did.
let's use that as a segue to
Okay.
talk a little bit more specifically about what you've created here.
Sure.
So yeah, let's jump back to you were going to start talking about the setting for
Oh,
Luna Uni. Let's jump straight in. Let's jump into the actual gameplay, not necessarily the mechanics yet, but what do you get out of the box, the tin, whatever it may be? That is Luna Uni.
so yeah, Luna Uni, the setting I'm really fond of. So I mentioned earlier in my classes with kids, small classes, I usually have up to at last count, 12 different uh, base decks, which have world pitches, and the kids get to vote on which world they want to shape. And that creates a lot of buy-in, right? Because they get to pick it. But for this, the purpose of the Kickstarter and for refining this for classroom use, I was like, okay, I can't do multiple settings.
Mm-hmm.
And, that's one layer of complexity also that you'd put on to teachers working with this for the first time. So I needed to decide on a setting that was the right one to
Mm-hmm.
begin with.
Save the
And
other ones for expansion packs.
I mean, there's so many good ones. I like Punk Pantheons, which is one of my
Mm,
favorites, where the kids play young gods dealing with crusty old gods who may have issues with them.
beautiful.
And yeah, we've had a lot of fun with that one. So Luna Uni is a future that is idyllic. It's actually sort of utopian. All the core worlds are sustainable and healthy and happy, and they've figured out hunger and disease and most of the basic issues that folks deal with. And that means that life there is incredibly boring. So the punk kids, the kids who are rebels, who are doing illegal science experiments in the basement, who drive too fast,
Mm-hmm.
who want adventure and exploration, who go into the places they're not supposed to go and want to travel where they're not supposed to go, they are sent to a terraformed moon called Luna Uni, which is the universe's center for radical learning. And of course, all of their professors are also loonies, which means they're risky and a little wild. And all of the adventures allow them the excuse to go to other worlds where they can explore. And this has connections to ecology. We've got kids building their own biomes and their own creatures that have analogous creatures on Earth, so that they're learning about niches and food webs. And we've got kids also doing things like using math to calculate volumes of their exploratory spaceships and break them into the different quarters. So it's very expansive in terms of the curricular connections.
Mm-hmm.
But the Kickstarter itself, there's basically three parts to it. The first part is a playable PDF that is just like Starsworn or Giga City Guardians. It is a play at home, play to learn PDF of the game with multiple story arcs in it that you can play through with anyone as you choose. Second piece is the digital toolkit, which is a modifiable Google Slides deck where you can build that immersive world, write those stories together, and also play the live scenes. So the same scenes from the game. The third piece, which you can fund each of these separately, you can fund them all together, however you want to do. The third piece is the teacher's guide. And that includes everything about how to adapt this to your classroom's needs. Different people have different class sizes. They also have different time frames that they can work within. They also have different, standards they need to hit. So it's pacing guides, lesson plans, assessment tools, all the things that you need to figure out how to put it into practice in your room. And that's what I'm offering. And I hope we get up to some higher levels because I want more art.
Mm-hmm.
I have a wonderful artist who's a parent of a student that I've had for the last couple of years. And he's amazing, Chris Shans. You can look him up. He's incredible. And we've been swapping art for lessons for a while. It's a nice work swap. But I want to also hire Rob Hebert, who did some work for me for Starsworn and Giga City, and he's brilliant. I would love to have a lushly illustrated PDF. The slide decks, they're all about letting the kids pick their own art. So it's one of the most exciting things about the slide deck is you really get to make a game book that is just as lush as the game books. You know, this is one of the powers of the big glossy books. You throw a bunch of game books on the floor, if it's got immersive fantasy art, there's nobody who's not going to pick that up and look at it if they're a kid. Making their own becomes this exciting thing, and it allows them to learn things like how to do a really cool Google image search for really cool art and finding characters that inspire them. And those visual pieces give another level of inspiration to kids. But yeah, and then at some of the higher levels, I'm hoping to do some regular meetings with teachers who are interested in applying this. And I would love to be able to host meetings and help folks implement, do some video classes for how to run and some of the tips and tricks I have for making it smooth, along with Tyler and Tom, who are absolute pros. I'm blown away by everything they've done. And I'm at the very highest levels. I was hoping to release maybe some of my other settings, because if I can fund those, I totally will.
Excellent. Excuse me. Yeah.
Only reason I'm not coughing is I'm drinking water.
Right. Gotta stay hydrated. So we've already talked quite a bit about the gameplay. I like to break when I'm looking at a new game, because I do a lot of teaching games on this channel. When I'm looking at a new game, when I'm trying to learn a new game, especially when I'm trying to teach a new game, I like to break it down into rules, tools, and themes. And we've already talked quite a bit about the themes. Obviously, we've talked a lot about themes and a lot about the tools that you use to help teach various subjects and bring people together.
Let's go rules.
Yeah, let's go rules. We've already looked at lore versus live and talked a little bit about the general gameplay loop, but let's talk actual gameplay mechanics. I assume this involves dice in some variety?
It does. So, and I'm a big fan of accessible tools for resolution mechanics. So I love a good deck of cards. I also love things like, there's a great game out there. You should look it up. It's called Ready Go. It's a hand sign resolution mechanic, which has a lot of cool, and it's got the success with a complication mechanic built in. This one is based on D6s because they're the most accessible die. Of course. It's very simple. Anytime you want to do something and you decide that it would be fun to roll, this is key. You roll because it would be good for the story and it would be emotionally engaging. So if you just want to do this thing and it would be cool to do it and you don't want to worry about whether it goes wrong, fine, do it. Away it goes. If it might be fun to see what happens, and you might like it if things go wrong, but you also might like it if things go right, that's when you roll, because it'd be fun to find out. So when you do that risky thing and it would be fun to find out, every line on your character's sheet, their drive, their downfall, their bonds, their traits that could possibly help you and that you can explain, okay, my character's really stubborn. That's their downfall. And in this situation, they're not going to give up. That's one die. All right. They're also bonded to, let's say, Dr. Dendrite, who's he's the guy who runs the conservatory for endangered species. And Dr. Dendrite is really worried right now. So I'm looking out for Dr. Dendrite, and I'm stubborn. I don't want to give up on this, even though they told me I should go back. And I have my skill, which is I'm an expert tracker. So I'm going to find these endangered critters. That's 3 dice. You can roll a maximum of 3 dice. And it's Blades in the Dark style dice pool. High die determines your success. A 6 means unqualified triumph. A 4 to 5 means triumph with a trouble. And a 1 to 3 means trouble. It went badly. It went wrong. Every scene that's set up in this game comes in basically 4 chunks. The first one is a hook. The hook is a read aloud, and it's always written to be engaging and as a model for good descriptive prose, right? You read it aloud, and there's always an illustration to go with. The second chunk is called Explore the Scene. It's a series of questions. What's around here that I could possibly use? Who else is bothered by this? How is so-and-so acting? And a little bit of description for the teller. Teller, describe how Dr. Dendrite is nervous about this situation and keeps worriedly looking at his screens. So that's Explore the Scene. That's the first step in running through a scene. in Stories RPG, and of course in Luna Uni. Second piece, well, I guess it's the third. So hook, explore the scene, make a move. This is where you decide, all right, I'm going to do a thing. And that's when you put your dice pool together and find out what happens. The last piece is a list of triumphs and troubles. These are just samples based on the situation, based on what's in the scene, right? And some of the things that could happen to you, you could lose a heart. Everyone has 3 hearts. When you lose a heart, it reduces the max number of dice you can roll. So if you're at 2 out of 3 hearts, now you can only roll 2. When you lose all your hearts, this doesn't mean you're injured. It could be you're having a breakdown. You're anxious. You're feeling really stressed. You're embarrassed.
Just tired.
You're exhausted, right? So when you're at 0, it means that you need time. And there are various ways you can get that time. Have a meal, get somebody to encourage you. And, people can make a move to attempt to give you a heart back, encourage you, and so kids get really involved in helping each other out when somebody needs a heart. One of the other troubles is you could create a situation that makes the next roll harder. You made things harder. You messed things up. So the next move is going to get -1 die because that's the trouble. The reverse is also possible. You can restore a heart. You can add a die to the next person's move. So you can get a max of 4. The other piece of the mechanics that's really fun, I have this mechanic called a drama clock. It's a very simple thing. It simply says, each of you has this many moves to score this many triumphs, or something dramatic happens.
Love it.
So if you want to crank up the juice on kids and get them really worried, what you do is you give them more triumphs than moves that they must score. Because technically on a double 6, they get 2 triumphs. And all characters start with a special. And your special ability is your epic, once per game, I do the really cool thing that only I can do because I'm really amazing at this. So raise the result of a roll to pilot a vehicle when you're driving too fast and being reckless because you're a speed demon, right? So that's an example of a special. So the cool part about this is it means kids can save up their special for the drama clock. And then everybody's trying to roll to get that 6. And then when they get the 6, they boost it to get the double 6 so they can meet the drama clock and prevent the drama. The other piece that's fun about the drama clock is it's a non-violent way to create a collective mission. You're not fighting a boss. You could be having a cooking contest. The key is every drama clock has to have a consequence. So example, if it's a cooking contest, you better win or the opposing team is going to take over the restaurant of your favorite chef who's been fighting to keep it open. So you better find those special ingredients and develop those crazy side dishes. You better go over there and low-key sabotage those jerks and make sure that their stove doesn't work, etc. So there's a lot of creative ways to make those scenes compelling. The coolest part about the scene building and the drama clocks, but mostly the scene building, it's a great template for teaching kids how to create their own scenes. So we're scaffolding all of our kids from playing through scenes to writing their own. Here's my hook. Okay, here are all the questions that people need to answer to explore the scene. All right, here are some sample moves they might make in this scene that might help, right? And then finally, here are some results of things that might happen that would be cool and exciting. Same thing with drama clocks. What's the consequence? Okay, great. How many moves you want to give everybody? Okay, great. How many triumphs do they need? How intense do you want to make it? This also jacks up the need for story points. So you can get a reroll with 2 story points. You can buy a new line with 3 story points. You can buy another special with 5. So kids start hoarding story points because they're like, drama clock's coming. And you get a lot of, wonderful connections between kids being built because, a kid will blow a roll on a drama clock and everybody will go, ah, and then somebody will be like, I got 2 points. Hold on, I'm spending 2 points. Re-roll that.
And it makes it about helping as opposed to blaming.
Exactly. Nobody's mad at you. Everybody's got your back.
Love it.
And that kid who got the story points for the reroll, you watch how hard they write next week to pay that kid off. But it's all about the collective wins and it's all about the collective joy. And yeah, the kids very quickly scaffold to building their own scenes and then running their own scenes. So we're actually going to have our kids, they're split into crews and we do kind of a fishbowl approach where the different crews can all collaborate together in their individual groups and then say their plans that they're going to use in a situation, almost like their crews are their own characters, right? Then in those crews, they're going to build other worlds and build a scene in that other world that's challenging. And then one crew will split up and be storytellers for all the other crews. And they'll take turns rotating like that and running the scene that they built together for other crews.
Love it.
Very meta-analytical levels of understanding of story, plot line, drama, all the different things that as a teacher, you would really hope kids would get compulsively into if you wanted them to become truly literate people, right? Because if you don't love story at that level, you're never going to read. This does it.
I love that approach, and it's an approach that I try to implement in my own gaming tables, because one of the best ways I find to really engage with gaming and collaborative storytelling, not a game, not this book here, not this one group of people, is to play on both sides of the screen, is to be a player and then actually get to the point where you have the, not necessarily confidence, you don't need a lot of confidence, you just need the creativity and the support and the enthusiasm.
There it is. It's the support. It's that feeling that this is something we do together.
Yes.
So one thing my teachers told me that I loved, Tom and Tyler, like I said, I had no idea this is their first time. Their first role-playing game ever was running a game for 20 kids in a classroom of fifth graders. And my mind was blown. And they did so wonderfully. And the thing that they said was, I learned really quickly. What I needed to do was ask the kids. So, that Dr. Dendrite example was from a live session they played last week. There was a creature called the Combustibrat that had explosive poo that also had a bad habit of hiding where it went. So, and it was, and also, of course, copious amounts. So this thing was loose in the conservatory, leaving explosive dookie in hidden spots all around this sanctuary for endangered creatures. And Dr. Dendrite's like, you gotta help me. And so one of the things that was great was, one of the kids was like, okay, well, we need to know something about this creature. We got to find something out. I'm going to go ask Dr. Dendrite for the files on this creature. And so they had her make a persuasion roll. And she did really well. She got a double 6. And he said, this is what my teacher told me. He said, here's what I did. I was so proud of myself. He said, you got the file. He turns over the file. And on the first page, there's a description of what the Combustibrat looks like. Why don't you read it aloud? And immediately all the kids were like, oh, it looks like this. It looks like that. And they generated the coolest Combustibrat. And of course, I don't know. I always think about this. There's some economic research out there about valuation. People will be given an object and say, what do you think this is worth? And they'll say, $5, right? And then they'll be, a second group is asked to build that object. And they'll say, what is this worth? And they'll be like $50. We all care about what we own.
Yes.
What we create has so much more worth. And if
you have a personal stake in it.
If you don't invite your players to the table, if you're not playing with your characters, I get it. Some people like that auteur model. I'm sorry. I'm too old for that. I can't prep 40 hours for somebody unless I'm being paid. And frankly, I don't want to. I don't need to perform in that way. I'm at the table to have fun with my friends and tell a great story. So we're all in it together. And if I don't know what happens next, I'm going to ask them, because chances are they know, and they will surprise and inspire me.
Yes.
That's the other thing, is like, kids, boy, sorry. I have so many things to say about this. Like the tyranny of the blank page. We do this terrible disservice to kids where we're like, okay, we want you to write. We start with personal narratives. So I don't know. I'm a 43-year-old man. I know who I am. I've been in my skin for a while, right? If you ask me, so I want you to tell me a true story about yourself. I want you to be honest and vulnerable. I want you to expose who you are by discussing a real life experience that you had. And then I want you to hand it to me so that I can read it, mark it up, and tell you what's wrong with it. I won't do it.
No.
Who wants to do it? Nobody wants to do that. So,
because that's judgment as opposed to
collaboration, inspiration, joy,
Mm-hmm.
creation, right? We're proud of what we create, right? And this is the thing. With story games, there's this combination of, one, you get the safety of fiction.
Yes.
And kids need this. Kids
Not
need to
just kids.
experiment. Oh, no, all of us.
Yep.
Well, if you don't experiment with other selves, how do you learn which ones
Exactly.
you like best? I mean, I've learned so many things about myself in games where I'm like,
Creating
oh,
new
wow.
characters, playing games, playing in other people's worlds, creating your own worlds is an amazing self-reflection tool.
It's really powerful as a tool for deciding who you'd like to
Mm-hmm.
become.
And
And
after
that's
you do
really
that
powerful.
enough, you can look
Yeah.
at other people's characters and other people's worlds, and you can see, at least
Yes.
vaguely, what they may be going through and find a way to relate to them and see.
Analytical skills being built. You've got
Mm-hmm.
literary analytical skills. You've got plot analysis being built. So I love that kids get this chance to be a not them, who they can
Mm-hmm.
experiment with and who they can play with and who they can explore their own issues with, because kids will very often come to writing about very sincere topics that they're struggling with, fears that they're dealing with, issues at home through their characters.
Because it's something they
But
know, but they
oh
don't need to
yeah,
be so vulnerable and exposing.
but
They
they
can
don't need to
push
say,
that through a
this is
lens.
me
Yeah.
and this is my relationship with my dad. And now let me
Mm-hmm.
share that with the room.
Yep.
But the other piece is the tyranny of the blank page is you're in control of all of it. Like, what's worse as an author than feeling like all of your characters are just little puppets who are just, you moving the mouth and not really understanding how to be a different person. The wonderful thing about story games is you gain so much momentum and inspiration from other
Mm-hmm.
people's improv and their stories. When the kids write lore together, oh my gosh, like they'll be like, that's awesome, I totally want to write about XYZ, and they'll immediately spiel off a huge number of different emergent
Mm-hmm.
storylines because they never would have thought
Mm-hmm.
of X, Y, or Z. And because their friend did, all of a sudden it's this wonderful, they have all these side jokes, they're writing extra slides, they're doing combo slides together, they have in jokes. It's their world.
Mm-hmm.
But none of them would have gone that far on their own.
Yeah, I have definitely noticed how collaboration and having multiple different perspectives, having feedback,
Mm.
it creates a snowball effect with
Yeah,
enthusiasm and inspiration, because you can only go so
totally.
far on your own, but if you bounce that off of a few other people, it just keeps growing and growing and growing
100%.
until it becomes something big enough that is not just yours. Everybody is moving that around, and it becomes a beautiful project.
Well, the kids have, the coolest thing about this is the culminating accessible outcome is a novella.
Hmm.
And each of the kids gets to pick one of their stories to perfect and include in the novella. And that's what they get their final assessment on. And the great part is it takes out a lot of the fear because the kids are like, no, 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 hold on. I think I like this story now, but I have a couple other stories I want to write to see if they're going to be
Right.
the one. And the other cool part is it's very differentiated. So for educators, oh my gosh, one of the most important things is you never teach the subject, you always teach your students. They need what they need, and you have to pay attention to them and you have to give them what they need. The lovely piece of this is I use a trick called challenge points where we'll do, okay, so you're struggling with compound complex sentences, the most boring thing in the world, right? Um, so I want you to really master your commas and conjunctions. And you know what? Go ahead, use the semicolon. I explained how to do it, but I want at least 3 or 4 of those in the next story. And if you choose to take the challenge, you don't have to, but if you choose to take the challenge, I'll give you a challenge point. So you would have gotten 3, you'll get 4. You would have gotten 5, you'll get 6. All of a sudden, these kids who never would have practiced grammar before are
Hmm.
like, "Eye of the tiger." Like, I'm going to
Yep.
get it.
Yep.
And like
Because
the
what does
other
an A
kids will be
mean?
like,
An A is
"You got
nothing.
it." No.
But a challenge
Well,
point, it's something you can use. It's something that matters.
it has meaning. Well, an A, I mean, don't get me started on why
Yeah,
the
this
human
could be a whole
school is
thing.
so stupid. I have a lot of things to say about it. There's only 4 real categories. Those 4 categories don't mean anything functional to the players
Hmm.
unless their parents or are somehow, or their background is somehow incentivizing certain
Right.
types of outcomes. I often say A and F students know the same secret, which is it's an arbitrary game. They just have made very different decisions.
Hmm.
A students have been like, okay, it's an arbitrary game, I play to win. F students are like, this is a dumb game, I'm not playing, I'm saving my energy for something that matters to
Yeah.
me. And I often think the F students do better in that equation. I know that sounds awful, I don't want kids to fail out of school. I think degrees are incredibly important and they make a huge change in a lot of people's lives. But I often see this happen with A students. They have been playing to win for so long that they have no pride or skills that they're aware of. And they have this deep-seated anxiety that only gets larger with every passing year, where they're like, I don't know how to do anything. I'm just literally going into every class and saying, how do I get the A?
Mm-hmm.
But I have no skills I'm proud of. I don't even know what I like.
Because the
What
only
should I
thing you
do a
learn how to
degree in?
do is game the game.
Is game the game, because the game doesn't have any. So you're not playing to learn.
Mm-hmm.
They don't walk into a classroom and go, what can I learn from this? What am I interested in this classroom? What can I bring away that I might tuck in my back pocket and use later? What could be fun here? Or what could I feel proud of that I made here? They don't do that. They go, okay, stupid game. How do I play? How do I win?
Yep. What is the least amount of effort I need to put in to get this arbitrary ruling?
Or the most, I'm going to get my 100%. So I'm going to absolutely nail it to the wall, but I don't know how to perform the skill. I only know how to ask you how to get the 100%.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So it's a very disenfranchising, agency killing approach to teaching kids, because the kid doesn't have any sense of, what do I want? What matters to me? What do I want to master? What do I care about? How do I want to use these skills? Where am I going? What do I like? What do I not like? None of those things are being cultivated. They're not being turned into learners. They're being turned into, and I often say this, I think, like most people who care a lot about design, language is mechanics. Language matters.
Oh, yeah.
Fluff is crunch. So you say something like behavior management, I already know you're thinking about kids like dogs. If you say the terms relationship building, okay, now we can go somewhere with that. So it's the same thing with school. If you're worried about a grade, then you're worried about the wrong thing.
Right.
And if the game is created to make you worry about the grade, then it's a bad game. Fix it.
And to bring us back around, Luna Uni is going to be the way to do that.
It's been really fun and really exciting to see how well it's doing already. And I'm super stoked for the next year.
Yeah. Well, let's touch on that just briefly, because we've hit the hour mark, so we're gonna wrap up shortly. But yeah, let's talk on that and take a look at the Kickstarter. You've already mentioned what people would get for their pledges. You've already mentioned some of the Kickstarters, so we can kind of not the pledge goals. I mean, you've already mentioned a number of the pledge goals you want to do. So we can brush past those questions. But I do see, congratulations, it has already met the minimum funding, which is phenomenal. It's gonna happen. I'm excited for it.
For sure.
And you are still going strong, it seems. So it looks like we're getting pretty close to one of those stretch goals, I believe.
Yeah, I might even swap one of them, because Tyler and Tom asked me, they were like, can we be a stretch goal? Because we want to get tickets to Gen Con to come present with you next year. And I was like, sure, totally. And then I realized along the way, I was like, you know what? We'll figure out how to buy those anyway. I want to put the art stretch goal there.
Nice,
so I think at 2K,
nice.
We're going to swap it for the art stretch goal, because I want to pay my buddy Chris Shans to make more amazing punk rock science and other world art for this game.
Right.
His stuff's amazing. I feel so fortunate to know him. He's really talented.
The art I've seen just on the Kickstarter is beautiful.
He's really crazy good. And he's very inspiring and inspired. We have a huge Pinterest board that we assembled. And the best part is his daughter, who is, again, a longtime student, has been writing him about how to get the characters right, because she's been at Luna Uni. So she's very like, all right, I need you to do this right. And I've loved that, because, Chris is like, oh yeah, Aggie's giving me trouble about exactly how to get it right. I'm like, yeah, I got it. She's my player in the field.
Nice. So I see we have about 21 days to go on the Kickstarter. I know the final deadline gets a little wibbly wobbly when you take into account time zones. For me, it's saying that you are crowdfunding through April 6th.
I am. And awesome. The reason it's April 6th is April 7th is my birthday, and I wanted to take the day off.
There you go.
Not look at numbers.
Perfect. And you can turn that into a celebration already, because it's met that minimum funding. Yeah, I'm excited for it. How about since it's been a while since you've mentioned it, and we're coming to the end here, do
Yeah.
a talk again a quick recap of the different pledge goals and what they can get for support.
Yeah, absolutely. So there are three pieces to the game. The first one's the playable PDF that anyone can pick up and use to play at home. It's play to learn, and it has a huge story arc where you get to create your loonies, head to Luna Uni, go through some classes, explore some other worlds, maybe uncover some progenitor tech and ancient relics of the progenitors, who are the people who came before. I didn't mention some of the lore about the language.
Mm,
Alien is an invective. You can't use that. It's an insult. The polite term is otherworlder.
I
And
like that.
the honorific is descendant, because every people has been identified, all life has been identified as having genetic ties to an ancient people known only as the progenitors, who are a huge mystery. And
Mm,
part of play is sort of discovering things about the progenitors and also creating them as part of writing. So anyway, first piece of the game is the PDF. You can play it. It's fully illustrated. The second piece of the game is the digital toolkit, which is a modifiable slides document where you can build worlds together. That's so that you can create your lore and have a communal place you can do all your reading and editing. It also works great for digital and online play, and it works great in classrooms for teaching editing, layout, and all these other great skills. And then the third piece is the teacher's guide. And the teacher's guide is really where all the serious that's the I have to say that's the biggest lift for me, because I've made games in every other way and I've made curriculum, and now I'm doing both. So that has pacing guides, lesson plans, assessment strategies, content standards, implementation stuff, everything you need to get this up and running in your classroom and start using it to really experience how much more fun learning can be
hmm
with story games in the classroom.
And I see from the pledge selector here that you can get all of that for just $15, which is an
I
incredible deal.
I went very low, both with my funding goal and also with the price, because I honestly just want to get it into people's hands.
hmm
Just to be clear, this is my day job. I make games and I teach online classes for kids for a living. And I also make this podcast, Stories RPG. So this is my livelihood. It is not as lucrative as being a classroom teacher, just to be clear. And as a result, I have to, always try to figure out what prices make sense both for me as a creator and for the people I'm paying, like my artist Chris, and also what will help people get excited and invest. And so I set my goal low because I knew I would create this game, and this is a longer term project.
hmm
This is only the first setting I'm releasing. There will be a lot more, and over the next couple years, I'm hoping to be rolling this out to larger scale
Mm.
organizations like districts, and I'm really excited to do that. So this is sort of the opportunity to get on the ground floor if you're a
Yeah,
teacher.
yeah.
I'm actually still looking for folks who might be willing to help with the impact study next year, because we have a few teachers who are ready, and we need a few more who
Excellent.
are willing to get this all going, because they're excited about it.
Excellent, excellent. Yeah, I'll reach out to you later. I might have something. And
Ooh,
audience, hey, the follow Michael on Twitter at Luck Legends. Drop some things in the comments. If you have a question, if you have suggestions, talk to us. We're here to chat. Uh,
yeah, easiest way to find all my stuff is bio.link/Michael Lowe. If you write that in, it has all my stuff. It's got Luna Uni, it's got Star Sworn, it's got my classes, it's got my books. It's very hard to keep it all under control. It's got my Twitter, it's got my email. Reach out. If anybody wants to talk about any of this, please, let's nerd. I'm in.
excellent, excellent. Yeah, I will make sure to drop that link in the description when it goes up on YouTube. Can't plug that in
Thank
right
you.
now, but I will drop that later.
Zero
Uh,
worries.
well, I usually end these interviews with a question that you've basically already covered. But
Okay.
what is next for you and Luna Uni and what's coming up?
So the next couple months, we're going to continue finishing the implementation study with Tyler and Tom, and developing all of the rest of the teacher's guide, and the entire shebang with all the art, all the stuff should be done. Fingers crossed, knocking on wood, by July so that it'll be ready for the next school year to roll out for anybody who's interested. And then next year, I'll be running an impact study with the help of one of my friends who's a PhD researcher. And that'll be a year-long study that will include teachers who don't use it and teachers who do, so that we can compare outcomes and get some really strong statistical evidence for what the approach does for folks. And then hopefully by I guess what February of next year, I'll be at South by Southwest, and I'll be speaking there with my PhD researcher friend who will be presenting the research, and my co-teachers. And hopefully that's when we'll be talking to a lot of interesting people about how to put this into more people's hands.
Yeah. Excellent, excellent. Well, I wish you luck in all of that. I would wish you luck on your Kickstarter. In fact, I will continue to wish you luck on the Kickstarter, but I am super excited to see that it's already funded. Well on the way to hitting some of those great stretch goals. So, you guys out in the audience, whether you're here live, whether you're checking this out on YouTube, scroll down below, check out some of the links, head over to the Kickstarter. It looks like a fantastic game. Whether you are a teacher or not, like we've already discussed here, there is a lot of throughway, a lot of similarities between teaching in a classroom and teaching a game and playing a game and being a student. So whether you are a student in a classroom or just somebody who wants to check out a really awesome new game in a really cool new setting, go check out Luna Uni. It looks fantastic. And you said you're going to be looking at fulfillment sometime in July, so it's not far off.
That's the plan. Not far off at all. We're already, I mean, the game is already built. The digital tool is already built. There's some layout there to be done. We're really just banging on all of the details of the teacher's guide and really making sure everything is ready for the classroom.
Excellent, excellent. Well, it has been an absolutely amazing time having you on to talk. It's been a great discussion. I've loved every moment of it. I will probably hit you up with even more later because, like I said, I could go on and on about it, and I'm sure you could as well. I've loved the enthusiasm. This is one of the reasons I enjoy this particular series, WIP Workshop. I do so much because it's just so invigorating and inspiring talking to somebody who loves what they do so much. So thank you so much for coming on. It's been great.
My pleasure. Thank you for being so patient and interested.
Yes.
Because obviously, I got a fire hose of things to say about this. It's exciting stuff for me. So thank you so much. I really do appreciate it.
And you folks at home, scroll down. There's going to be some links. Thank you so much for watching. Check back next week for another episode of WIP Workshop, and check out some of the other videos, whether they be one-shots or my continuing RPGs Uncovered series that you can find here on Twitch and also here later in the future on YouTube. Thank you so much. Go check out Luna Uni, and we'll see you next week. Happy time zone, folks.
Bye.